Charlene Burke here, welcoming everyone to the Morning Mindset Blab. Today we're going to be reading Think and Grow Rich from pages 26 through 28 and then discussing. Midway down page 26, it begins, "What of the man who has neither the time nor the inclination to study failure in search of knowledge that may lead to success? Where and how is he to learn the art of converting defeat into stepping stones to opportunity?" In answer to these questions, this book was written. The answer called for a description of 13 principles. But remember, as you read, the answer you may be seeking to the questions which have caused you to ponder over the strangeness of life may be found in your own mind through some idea, plan, or purpose which may spring into your mind as you read. One sound idea is all that one needs to achieve success. The principles described in this book contain the best and the most practical of all that is known concerning ways and means of creating useful ideas. Before we go any further in our approach to the description of these principles, we believe you are entitled to receive this important suggestion. When riches begin to come, they come so quickly in such great abundance that one wonders where they have been hiding during all those lean years. This is an astounding statement, and all the more so when we take into consideration the popular belief that riches come only to those who work hard and long. When you begin to think and grow rich, you will observe that riches begin with a state of mind, with definiteness of purpose, with little or no hard work. You and every other person ought to be interested in knowing how to acquire that state of mind which will attract riches. I spent 25 years in research, analyzing more than 25,000 people, because I too wanted to know how wealthy men become that way. Without that research, this book could not have been written. Here take notice of a very significant truth, viz. The business depression started in 1929 and continued on to an all-time record of destruction until sometime after President Roosevelt entered office. Then the depression began to fade into nothingness. Just as an electrician in a theater raises the lights so gradually that darkness is transmuted into light before you realize it, so did the spell of fear in the minds of the people gradually fade away and become faith. Observe very closely. As soon as you master the principles of this philosophy and begin to follow the instructions for applying these principles, your financial status will begin to improve, and everything you touch will begin to transmute itself into an asset for your benefit. Impossible? Not at all. One of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average man's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all the rules which will not work. He knows all the things which cannot be done. This book was written for those who seek the rules which have made others successful and are willing to stake everything on those rules. A great many years ago, I purchased a fine dictionary. The first thing I did was to turn to the word impossible and neatly clip it out of the book. That would not be an unwise thing for you to do. Success comes to those who become success conscious. Failure comes to those who indifferently allow themselves to become failure conscious. The object of this book is to help you all who seek it to learn the art of changing their minds from failure consciousness to success consciousness. Another weakness found in altogether too many people is the habit of measuring everything and everyone by their own impressions and beliefs. Some who will read this will believe that no one can think and grow rich. They cannot think in terms of riches because their thought habits have been steeped in poverty, want, misery, failure, and defeat. These unfortunate people remind me of a prominent Chinese who came to America to be educated in American ways. He attended the University of Chicago. One day, President Harper met this young Oriental on the campus, stopped to chat with him for a few minutes, and asked what had impressed him as being the most noticeable characteristic of the American people. "Why," the Chinaman exclaimed, "the queer slant of your eyes. Your eyes are off slant. What do we say about the Chinese? We refuse to believe that which we do not understand. We foolishly believe that our own limitations are the proper measure of limitations. Sure, the other fellow's eyes are off slant because they are not the same as our own. Millions of people look at the achievements of Henry Ford after he has arrived and envy him because of his good fortune or luck or genius or whatever it is that they credit for Ford's fortune. Perhaps one person in every 100,000 knows the secret of Ford's success. And those who do know are too modest or too reluctant to speak of it because of its simplicity. A single transaction will illustrate the secret perfectly. A few years back, Ford decided to produce his now famous V8 motor. He chose to build an engine with the entire 8 cylinders cast in one block and instructed his engineers to produce a design for the engine. The design was placed on paper, but the engineers agreed to a man that it was simply impossible to cast an 8-cylinder gas engine block in one piece. Ford said, "Produce it anyway." But they replied, "It's impossible." "Go ahead," Ford commanded, "and stay on the job until you succeed, no matter how much time is required." The engineers went ahead. There was nothing else for them to do if they were to remain on the Ford staff. 6 months went by, nothing happened. Another 6 months passed, and still nothing happened. The engineers tried every conceivable plan to carry out the orders, but the thing seemed out of the question. Impossible. At the end of the year, Ford checked with his engineers, and again they informed him they had found no way to carry out his orders. "Go right ahead," said Ford. "I want it, and I'll have it." They went ahead, and then, as if by a stroke of magic, the secret was discovered. The Ford determination had won once more. I'm going to stop there and join whoever is in the room and ask that anybody who has thoughts that they would like to share, jump into the open seat. I'd be happy to have you join me. Some of the things that I got out of this reading, which is important to me, is that, is it really impossible? Mike.
Hey, Charlene.
There you are. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining me. How are you this morning?
I love this morning routine. This is awesome.
Oh, glad to have you with me. So what are your thoughts?
I think the thing that really stood out was right off the bat how he opens with that the answer you may be seeking, you will likely find the answer to in your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so this to me sounds like inspiration, that we kind of have all these answers within us as almost innate knowledge, but we learn not to listen to them for fear or education or because we know better, because somebody we trust told us differently. And then later he uses this story with Ford where he says, "This is what I want. I'm going to have it, make it happen. I know that it's not impossible," because he trusted that voice within himself to say, "I know that I can have this and I'm just going to have it." Not, well, maybe I can't, and maybe I should listen to the experts, and maybe I should doubt myself. It really was just about trusting that he had that answer within him and following through. I love it.
Oh, I love that. Now, what's interesting to me is what I got was going from the failure consciousness, the one of thinking of that always putting up the barrier of it's impossible, you can't do it, listening to others saying you can't, listening to others say it's impossible, paying attention to them, but being able to move past that by the mind shift of, if I change the way I view the world and my perspective into one of it can happen, that it is possible, anything is possible. I think for me, that is where my inspiration is going to come from. What you're talking about, where we already have the answers, but we have to uncover them. We have to get things out of the way. That's part of what I got out of the book.
And it's stuff that we have learned.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't born doubting ourselves. We learned that over time because we tried things that work and things that don't work, and people have influence over us. And so we just kind of develop these stories about how the world works, but they're not necessarily, just because we believe them doesn't mean they're true, beyond the fact that we kind of make them true because we believe them. And so that once we can recognize that and start to look at the world with new eyes and just reevaluate, well, what is really the truth of this situation, then the possibilities are much more open than we a lot of times will think going in.
Yes. Then there is, that's the overall. And what struck me right at the beginning of the reading was talking about the Chinese guy. So what you go into a different environment, and the first thing he notices is the difference between me and you is your eyes aren't right.
Right.
And so it's proof again that I'm measuring everything from my own perspective, right? So it comes back to me to work on changing my perspective, and to do that, it has to go deeper. I got to tell you, this owning your own business is the best self-improvement exercise I have ever experienced. It is hard work. Not only am I working on the business, I'm working on myself. Holy macaroni, I got to tell you. All right. Which is why I'm doing the morning mindset. Okay. So I can get my morning off to the right track. So your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And that story with the Chinese guy, I think, and what he's highlighting is that we're kind of stuck in our own perspectives. And to some extent, like, we have to trust what we're perceiving is true, but we interpret everything that we see based on our stories and beliefs that we already have. And so it's really a matter of becoming more discerning about, what do I take for granted and what do I assume and what do I believe about what I'm seeing in the world around me. That's going to determine how I see the world. So if I feel like I'm not getting the opportunities that I want, or I'm not getting the response that I want, or I'm not attracting the audience that I want, that all goes more to the stories that I'm telling myself around my experiences, much more so than the actual experience that I'm having.
So my question then, to further the discussion, is the how. So yes, I'm with Bonnie. Bonnie is saying in the comment section, thank you, Bonnie Frank. Good to have you with us. It's always a joy to see you. We all walk around with our own versions of reality. That's yes, I am the culmination of all my experiences and who I am, and that's what guides me today. But that is what got me in the position that needs to be changed. So my best thinking got me here. I'm going to really tighten it up. My best thinking got me here. Therefore, how do I expect my best thinking to get me out? If I'm the one who caused the problem, the issue, the barrier, then how can I be the one that breaks through it? And that's what was going through my mind as I was reading this, going from failure consciousness to success consciousness. I'm just going to throw it out there for thoughts, if you have any. If you don't, I'll take it further. But
you're not just accepting that. You are working on it. You're working on it by reading these books, by continuing to experiment with new actions and new beliefs. Maybe you have a coach, maybe you have other people that you talk to. You're putting yourself out there, taking new actions, getting different results, trying different things. So we're not limited to what we believe today. It's got a lot of influence over us, but it doesn't determine what we can do. And the thing that I've really been realizing lately is I always would get caught up in this dynamic of thinking, okay, so I've got this belief, but I know it's not maybe true. I really believe it. So I was always looking for an explanation for why do I believe it. And what finally yesterday is, it really doesn't matter. I know that it's not true. So somehow I just kind of came up with this false conclusion that I can just let go of. I'm not invested, because integrity and truth is more important to me than ego and being right. So I would say, but by trying to dwell on this, but how did I get this wrong belief? I'm more feeding the ego side than the truth side. So now I'm trying to come to terms with the fact that I value truth above ego. So I can just acknowledge that somehow, however, I came up with this belief that's not true. I'll let it go.
So don't get stuck on the how I got here. Just acknowledge I am here and move forward. Yes, love that.
Yeah.
Bonnie.
See how that works out.
Bonnie, welcome. Come on board. What are your thoughts? Please share.
Well, what's interesting, and it's really, hi, Mike. I have not met you yet, so it's very nice to meet you. And I'm so intrigued by so many more people standing up when they're broadcasting. The first person I noticed that did that was Grant Cardone. And now I've been seeing more and more people who are broadcasting standing up. It's just like a lot of them have standing desks and things. It interests me. Anyway, so one of the things that I was thinking about when you were,
Sean's
success,
awesome.
Sean is on here. You want to get him on here too.
Yeah, he comes on every morning.
He is amazing. I love
yes.
And Mike, if you don't
know, she's going into time warp. Going into warp.
Yeah. Obviously, look at his.
Oh, Bonnie, your connection is going wonky. Just so you know, you're going into warp. Come back, Bonnie. But in the meantime, we're going to bring Sean on. Maybe.
I already missed the reading.
Oh, there you are. All right, Sean, welcome aboard. Your thoughts.
Good morning. Good morning, Mike.
Morning. I was watching you yesterday from the chat room, so it's nice to connect.
Yeah, and I watched you the first day get on and chat with Charlene. So we already did the reading?
Oh, we did. Are you not caught up yet?
No, I'm not caught up, and I just jumped in.
That's okay. We'll catch you up. So what we're talking about is changing that consciousness from. What are you doing to that dog? Sorry. Anyway,
4 puppies.
Yes.
4 puppies. They're
oh
wrestling.
dear. Oh, you're a brave man. So what we were talking about was, is it really impossible? Having that failure consciousness or the impossible thinking, the thinking that's stuck in, being, it is impossible, it can't be done. It's, all right, people, you got to stick with me. Welcome back, Bonnie. I was just talking to Sean. Anyway, so what we're talking about is that you're stuck in this thinking, and it needs to change. Welcome back, Bonnie. Glad you can come back. Uh-oh.
Thank you. I'm in a hotel, so I apologize for the Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah.
Spotty Wi-Fi.
Yeah, spotty Wi-Fi. Well, and then we have Sean in Guatemala. That's okay. We still have an open seat. If anybody in the chat area would like to jump in and just share your thoughts, your own experience, your questions. I mean, that's pretty much what we're all here for, is to, read a little bit and share a lot. And that way we can learn and get the day started off right. Because maybe I always bring away a nugget that I put in place throughout the day. So changing, I like what Mike said. And I know that the principles moving forward in the book are going to go into this and the hows and what have you. Don't get stuck on the how I got here. Instead, acknowledge that I am here in that mindset that I want to change. And you noted that by my actions that I'm taking now is going to help me move beyond whatever barriers that I do have. And I think I'm actually, I fully agree with that. I believe that our actions can change our thoughts more than our thoughts can change our actions. Now, I know that it is a combination of all three, well, 4. Because we're 4 pieces. We're physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so they're all interconnected. But what seems to really work for me to change my thinking is to do something. And what is, again, I'm going to go back to, it's my best thinking that got me here. So how do I get out? I get around people like you, Mike, and others in the chat who are trying to jump on and learn what you do, how you think. And then I try to absorb that and see parts of this I can actually put to use. And so little by little, I change the way I do things. So I change the way I started my day. I change the way that I approach people. I change the way that I talk to people. I change the way that I do business. But it all started with little steps for me. Am I on board with that? Well, I'm not even going to ask if I'm on board. Those are my thoughts. So your thoughts are welcomed. I encourage you to tell me what you think, Mike.
Well, you said something about acknowledging where you are, and I think that's really valuable. I think the shift that I was getting to was that I was mad about where I was, and I didn't want to admit where I was, and I wanted to like beat myself up for letting myself get there versus just saying, okay, well, this is where I am. Where do I go from here? And I think that's really valuable. And to making these shifts that you're talking about, to me, like I totally agree with what you said, that your best thinking got you where you are. You didn't you didn't try to make bad choices or get results that you didn't want. We do the best that we can, and that's why it makes it so hard to change, because we think. My favorite quote is from Einstein, where he says, "You can't use the same thinking to solve the problem that you used when you created it," and that's exactly what you're speaking to. And I think it really does go to challenging the assumptions and be willing to accept that. There's something about the way I'm thinking about this problem that's just not applicable or not true. And the real trick is that at some point in our history, that technique, that thinking, that belief did serve you. It did get you to some extent what you wanted. It did keep you safe. It did get you the extra cookie after dinner or whatever. And so we kind of like learn that, okay, this is how I make decisions from here on out. And we keep trying to apply it over and over again. But now as adults and as business owners, those same patterns don't apply anymore. And it can be really hard to let go of those things. But the first step, like you said, is acknowledging where you are and realizing that, is building that self-awareness. And I totally, totally, totally agree that business ownership is like a critical element of business ownership is self-improvement.
So let's take it one step further, because as you were talking, I glanced over at the reading again, and I realized that, so I want to move forward, and I want what we read about. I want to move from the failure consciousness into success consciousness. And I acknowledge now, I know where I am. I'm ticked off. I am frustrated. Oh gosh, this is all going to come back when this happened. I am frightened. I am nervous. I'm anxious. All the words that describe fear and anger, which of course I think fear is a direct shoot off of anger, one or the other. I'm not going to go into the psychobabble because I'm not good at it. I'm good at babbling about it, but I'm not good at knowing it. So I guess the point I'm getting to is, how do I know what success looks like? How do I know that what it is I'm going to move forward to? So I know where I want to move away from. So where I'm coming from is, when I started my business, I was running away from corporate world. I was running away from the cubicle farm. I was running away from the angst of working in jobs that just really stank for me. It was not the right environment for me. So I was running away from that when I first started my business. Now, this is interesting that John Birch, good morning, John, and you're welcome to jump on. Well, we got to get Sean on here first, and then we can get John on here. You say to design it, but that's where I'm going with this, is when I ran away from that, all I knew was that that's not where I wanted to be. I didn't have a real clear picture when I started my business of what it was going to look like and where it was going to go. I just knew I was running away from something. So I was willing to do whatever was necessary to get away from that and push through fears and anxieties and all that came with it. It was after I started the business, after I got involved with successful people, after a lot of other things, that I started changing my thinking. So I want to throw that out to you. Going from the one consciousness to another, I can't do it by myself because I don't know what it's going to change to. How, and now we're going to get into the hows.
The word that comes to mind is desire. That's what does success look like? It's like whatever you want it to look like. Okay. And so what you're saying is, the way I heard it was, I kind of got into this because I wanted to get away from something. And so my only driving force was away, but I wasn't really moving towards something. So what that success is going to feel like to you is when you get to where you want to be, which just requires thinking about it, right? Acknowledging it.
Right.
Yeah. And I like what John put in the comments, that we do need to design it. We need like Mike was saying, you need to, and you both were saying, you got to acknowledge where you're at today. And I think you got to look back at where you've been. Like I said in the comments, you got to look where you've been, where are you today, and where are you trying to go? And you have to be clear on what you're shooting for. I appreciate Tony Robbins says you can use pain as a motivator, but pain and running from pain can't be sustained. At some point, you have to shift, like you were saying, Mike, to I'm done running from this pain. What's the pleasure that I'm heading towards? And that's where we can continue to sustain that momentum and motivation. So in order to do that, we need to know what does success look like for us? Because it is a very individual concept.
Hello, Edwin. Welcome back. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Charlene. How are you?
I am well.
Morning,
and you?
Edwin.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
Morning. Saw you yesterday, Edwin. So good to see you again.
So what would you like? Oh, you're not driving, so thank you, Edwin.
I am. Always driving.
Didn't have to tell me that. All right, so what do you have? Jump on in. Oh, Sean, those dogs, I swear to goodness, they are flat out scary.
They're crazy.
Yes. All right, Edwin, what would you like to add?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm just joining in right now, so I don't know what you guys are talking about, what the topic is. So if you want to fill me in, or I'll just listen in for a little bit, and then I'll give my senses once I hear a little bit more about what you guys are talking about today.
What do you think, Mike? You want to let Edwin in on what we're talking about?
Well, we've had a bunch of new people join since you did the reading and started. And so I think the way I would sum it up is that we have to trust the answers that we have within ourselves. Listen to our own inner voice. And you had asked the question, Charlene, about how, what does success look like? And to go back to the first paragraph of the reading, my answer would be that you'll find that answer within yourself. Once that's where you're looking, you can listen to that. So the examples we gave were about, in the reading, our perspective of the world and how other people perceive us and how we're kind of limited to our own beliefs and point of view. And then the Henry Ford example where he said, I don't care if it's not possible. I want a V8 engine cast out of a single piece of metal, make it happen. And the engineers told him it was impossible, and it took a long time, but they finally got there and he got what he wanted because he knew that that's what he could have. That's what success looked like to him. He knew what that was, and he got there, which goes exactly to what Sean said, which is you need to know where you are and you need to know where you're going. And if that's clear in your mind, then you've got a map to getting there.
Perfect. So yeah, I guess we're talking about success. I was doing a Periscope yesterday afternoon, and somebody asked me what does success mean, or how do you become successful? So my answer to them was, you determine what success means to you, because what my definition of success is not the same one as you are. To view success could be financially, could be relationship wise, could be health wise. So first we need to figure out what is success for us. What makes us feel successful. Finishing a career is that, that could be a big achievement for us. And that means that I'm successful because I graduated college or I graduated high school. So one of the first things that I will say is that we have to figure out what is success to us. What does that mean? And it has nothing to do with financial success, unless that's the goal that you're going for.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing that I know from my experience is as I've aged and come up in years, that success changes. What success looks like to me has changed.
I agree with you, Sean.
And to add a little bit more, I would argue that success even is our judgment of a situation or a feeling, not even necessarily the actual tangible results that we're getting. Those are just the circumstances. So the real question is, do I feel good about this? Is this what I want? Am I happy with this? And that's kind of what makes whatever's happening in your life feel like a success or feel like a failure, is how you look at it and the story that you tell around it.
That's a very excellent point, Mike.
Well, and also Mike had noted earlier that from the reading, when it went further into Ford's success with that V8 engine, pushing his engineers, just telling them that impossible is not an option. It will get done. And so they were pushed to just keep looking for a better answer. It all began with desire that turned into determination. So the desire was the feeling, the determination became the action, which was telling those engineers, no, this is what I want. And that's what I pay you for. So go get it. It doesn't.
Right.
He didn't put a time limit on it. That's what was interesting to me. 6 months goes by, nothing. 6 months goes by, nothing. 6 months go by, and bang! All of a sudden, we've got it. Go ahead, Sean.
And I think a lot of that has to do with changing our questions around it. So instead of saying, "Can I do this?" you ask yourself, "How can I do this?" Because it activates different parts of our brain where our brain will start looking for solutions. Like, okay, we set this goal, and we say, instead of saying, "Can I do that?" you say, "Okay, how can I do that?" And there's more, you can go deeper with the questions. That's kind of very surface level, but it's about asking the right questions, because we tend to say, "I don't know how I can do this," or, we limit ourselves. But if we ask the right questions, then we start activating the parts of our brain that will look for the answers and give us the drive to work at it.
And that's how I go from the failure consciousness, which is the encompassing umbrella term for all the negativity or my barriers. So I go from the failure consciousness to the success consciousness. And that is asking the how do I do it, right? So I have the desire, and then I have to say, well, I have the desire, and I'm darn sure I'm determined. I'm just not sure where to go from here. So start asking myself how, which you're saying changes the chemistry in our thinking and the way we think, right?
Yes.
And I think being specific and intentional about what it is. In the case that you gave before, it was, well, I want to get out of this situation. All right, you got out of that situation. Mission accomplished. You're a success at that now. But where do you want to go? If your goal is just to be different or better, I think your mind doesn't really know what to do with that. If you want to achieve a certain thing or get to a certain place or have something specific, then your mind can be very adept at figuring out, okay, how do I get to this specific destination?
Okay. What do you think of that, Edwin?
No, that's exactly, how Mike says it. You have to start thinking about solutions. A lot of times our mindsets are set into whenever we don't feel passionate about something or whenever we don't like something, the first thing we say is no, that can't be done or that's not going to work out. But if we start practicing that on a daily basis of finding solutions to everything, it's going to work. One of the things, for example, that I tell all my employees is that they have to become excellent at become salespeople. So how do I train them to become excellent salespeople? First, I need to teach them how to become excellent negotiators. So how do we start doing that? Everywhere that they go, on a daily basis, every time you go somewhere, you ask for a discount. And that has become a daily habit of mine, looking for a solution. What is it that I can get extra so I could become better at what I do? So always finding a solution, always finding a way. That's something you have to do. You have to change your mindset. So that's how you change your mindset of figuring out how to do things. Even if you're not passionate about them, once that becomes like part of your self-being, you're always going to find a solution to whatever it is.
I love that, Edwin. Always ask for a little bit extra or always ask for a little bit of discount. That is such an awesome habit. I've started doing that more lately, and it's shocking how often people will give you that stuff. And then it's just like free extra stuff. I love it.
No, and it's true because Mike, you answered that, right? You said that. I do this every day of my life. I ask for military discount. I ask for AAA discount. I ask for government discount. I ask for employee discount. I even ask just for a discount for smiling at them. And people will give it to you. You just have to learn how to ask. And if that becomes a habit of a daily part of your routine or your life, it's the same thing with finding solutions in your business. There's, one of my mottos that I tell everyone, tell me that I can do something and I will prove you wrong. Because I am a solution maker. I'll find a solution. I'll find a way to do things. So if you
Now
start
there's a
living
mindset.
on that
Really?
way, on that type of mindset, it becomes a habit. So it becomes second nature to you. You don't have to think, as soon as a problem comes up to you, you're not going to say, no, I don't know how to do this. You're going to say, let me figure out how to do this.
So you got better at it as you practiced it. As you initially got through the nervousness or the little bit of anxiety of trying something different and just doing something related to that mindset every single day, now it becomes such a part of you that you're able to just be who you are. It is a part of you, but also take it to your team and show them how to do it, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Love it.
And Charlene, that
Mike,
goes as well as
want to say
remember.
goodbye, Mike? Thanks for joining us.
See you later, Mike.
Bye. Take care, Mike. Thank you for being here. And Charlene, that goes back again to our conversation yesterday about failure. That comes again. Not being you have to fail. Be okay with failing, because that's the only way that we're going to learn more. So whenever you start something, go for failure. And if you don't fail, excellent. And if you fail, it's okay, because that's another learning experience.
All right.
And it takes you one closer to what you want to
I'm going
accomplish.
to admit right now that I'm still not okay with that. That is something I'm still struggling with, is to be okay with failure.
And it is a huge mindset shift, because
Struggle.
all the experts and the people that are successful, they say, you want to succeed more, go out and fail more.
They say it, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this, is because I need to hear it from those who are doing it, had just gone through it, had already done it, and it's working for them, how to learn from that. And that is one area that is stuck. And that's why I love this reading about going from the failure consciousness to the success consciousness. And in the reading, it is the umbrella that includes everything, going from the poverty thinking, the lack thinking, the scarcity thinking, the mean streets, the struggle, and all that. And a portion of that, for me, is learning how to recognize that I'm still really don't like to fail, so I don't set out to look for the opportunity to fail to learn. And that's what I'm trying. That's not even trying. That's what I'm doing daily and have been for quite a while. Try to change that so that it really being okay that I failed so that I can learn from it.
And for me, one of the big shifts is, because I've always hated rejection. And like Edwin was sharing, I'm going to divert a little bit. I actually was researching for a scope that I did on fear of rejection, because a lot of us are afraid to ask for things because we're afraid to be rejected. And it's a psychologically embedded thing in us. I mean, if you went to join the Third Reich, which none of us would, it's something none of us really want to do, or join the KKK, even if you applied for a group that you didn't really want to be a part of and they rejected you, it still affects you the same as the group, something you did want to be a part of. So there's actually, there's actually a guy who wrote a book, because he went on a 100-day rejection challenge, and he went out and just asked the craziest question. I mean, simple things like, can I get a military discount? Can I get, like Edwin shared, those aren't that, I mean, they're given, I'm a veteran or I'm a military, so I should have a discount if you have it. But he went to like Dunkin' Donuts and asked, or no, was it? Yeah, I think he went to Dunkin' Donuts and asked for a weird shape of donut. And they said, sure. And they made the weird shape of donut and gave it to him for free. And there was all kinds of stories. And I'll get you the book name, and I'll have it for tomorrow, and the author. Because he literally just went out and asked the craziest things and got yeses more times. People would have said no. Nobody would have ever said yes for that.
Now here, I thought you were going to tell me that he set out to intentionally get used to hearing no.
He did. He was trying to get past that.
You see where my mind went? The experiment was, I'm going to set out to at least 100 times I'm going to hear no, so I get used to hearing the rejection so I can get through it. And so what you're saying is that even with that mindset, it didn't happen. which
Right,
means
because
that why
a
should
lot
I
of
be
that
afraid
no,
of
a lot of that
failure?
no thing, that fear of no, is up here. You know, a lot of times we're
You
afraid to
little
ask.
sneak. You little sneak. You just
I
sneaked
mean,
that right into me.
how many times do I recall when I was a kid and somebody would say, "Did you ask your mom?" And I go, "No, she's just going to say no anyway." You know, and we're programmed with that. You know, don't ask because they're just going to say no anyway. But on the failure thing, one of the shifts that really helped me is there's no failure in life. As I've studied NLP, one of the pretexts is there is no failure, only feedback.
I've got that written down and it's on my desk because I've been reading that. I've added it to
And
my
like
daily.
Edwin was saying, I've embedded it. I just keep repeating it in my head. So now it's not, it doesn't take conscious thought. You know, I just go for it because there's no failure. I just found, like the old Edison quote, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Excellent.
And
And
well,
it is
Sean,
about changing our thoughts. One simple tool that I use with my wife, because she's like, I can't do that. And I'm like, you what? Because if, you know, Ford said, whether you say you can or whether you say you can't, you're right. One word, you add one word on the end of that sentence, I can't yet.
Okay.
Right. Sean,
and it changes your whole thinking.
Going back to the topic that you were talking about, as far as fear of rejection, have you overcome that, or are you still kind of dealing with that once in a while, or?
It still rears its ugly head, but it doesn't haunt me like it used to.
Okay.
I've really gotten to the point in my life where I really don't, you know, so what if I get rejected? I got on a Periscope with my hair like this. I got on the
but it's not nearly as attractive.
You got more than me, so that's good. You got more than me.
All right, hey guys.
Hey, let's talk about hairs here.
Yeah, please be mindful of John, who's about ready to get me.
It's a choice.
I'm gonna have to get my sunglasses out.
So Sean,
that was wrong,
one of the things that I actually use a lot, you know, to compensate for that, I always say the worst thing somebody could tell me is no. So no, it's not bad, you know, like that's one of the ways that I use.
See, that's what happens when you're
that
driving.
way. No just becomes a word and it has no effect in your life.
So you take away the emotion that's attached to the word. Okay.
Yeah, you take the power away from the word.
Well, I would like to welcome John to the discussion now. Thank you so much for jumping in, John. Pleasure to meet you. Would love to hear your
He
thoughts.
just sits back and lets everybody else talk.
Nope. There has to be an active discussion. Otherwise, it's going to be Charlene talking all the time, and that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to have everybody else talk so that I can learn and others can learn, because I obviously don't have all the answers.
Well, thank you.
John, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here. I'm just getting used to this Blab platform, so I think it's amazing. But I saw your title and was like, that's my favorite book. So it's amazing.
So that means you're going to be here for upcoming weekdays, right?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yes. Join. It'd be great.
Charlene, how often are you having this Blabs? Are you having this on a daily basis?
Every day during the weekday. I'm taking weekends off.
Okay, so at what time? Starting 8 o'clock, 8:30?
8 o'clock Eastern time.
8 Eastern.
And those days that I have, there will be times when I have a 9 o'clock. So I will tell everybody ahead of time that we'll be cutting it a wee bit short until I am able to have a co-host that I can turn it over to. So when that happens, then of course it can continue. So go ahead.
And as we were saying yesterday afternoon, Charlene, soon Wednesdays it will be an automatic 45.
Yes.
Short one, right?
Yeah, actually I'll probably be able to put it to 50 minutes. Upcoming good things happening, announce that later. All right, John, sorry about that. Totally cut you off.
No, it's all right.
You go.
No worries. I teach, I have a program called Values by Your Design. I've taught it for years to teenagers and stuff like that, but it was inspired. A lot of the information came from Think and Grow Rich and a lot of other resources. Bob Proctor was another huge influence on that. Jim Rohn. So just getting to that knowledge has been phenomenal for my life. But one of the things I teach is I have a model called the individual adjustment model, or the I am. So when we use, that's the greatest power we have as human beings, is the I am. So everything you say, you use it all the time. It's just whether or not you're conscious of how you're using it. A lot of the times when I coach people, I'll say, tell me what you want. And they go, well, I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't want this. I don't want that. And it's like, no, tell me what you want. That way we can focus on getting you those things. And then we start working on that mind shift. So in that model, and I'm going to start blabbing about this soon too. So in that model, I basically teach people how to tell yourself better lies. So everything, I teach that belief, if you look at the center of your beliefs, if you just write that word out and capitalize the middle three letters, it's lie. So the lie at the center of your beliefs structures your life. So from that lie, and we've been taught that everything that happens in your life comes from our thoughts. In reality, it comes from your beliefs. Your beliefs create your thoughts, and neuroscience is really starting to prove this pathway for us, that it's our belief. What we believe, our belief systems, our belief structure creates our thoughts. Then our thoughts give us our emotions, and it happens lightning fast. We can barely pick it up unless you become very aware of it. And then that thought process gives us that emotion gives us our behavior, that behavior gives us our result. If that result is congruent,
which solidifies the beliefs and starts the loop
right,
over
yep,
again.
it's a causational cycle. So if you're congruent with that belief from your result, then you're fine. You're just going to continue that cycle, no matter if it's smoking or if it's weight loss, if it's your self-image, whatever that belief system, that paradigm, as we used to call it, is. You're going to reinforce that unless you come up with a conflict. What I say is put in a firewall in that causational cycle and create conflict within it, or you will have conflict with it at some point in that belief system. And if we're able to recognize that, and then I teach from the personality aspect of what your drive is. So if you're a certainty person, that's what Tony Robbins teaches as well, is from the certainty aspect. What are you trying to fill in your life? And once we understand that, I can teach you how to structure anything in your life. So, and it's just a matter of dynamic mindset.
This goes back to what we had read about the whole thing with Ford. The determination came from his desire. So it was the desire which was attached to his belief that it could happen. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Am I getting
this? Absolutely.
So by I have a desire to improve something in my life. I have a desire to increase sales. I have a desire to go after a different market. I have a desire to start something new. Basically, now I'm going to go back to when I started this up. I had the desire to do it. I had the internal belief that it could be useful and helpful to other people, but it was supported by, I wanted it for me. And I was just really hoping people would join me, and I am thrilled everybody's here and getting what you're getting out of this. But now I have the determination to keep moving forward, so I'm good with committing on the daily basis to be here. But that's where it started, was the desire. I wanted something. How's it going to happen? To go back to Sean, how can I do this? Blab's the perfect medium. Let's go, move forward. Right?
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah.
Oh,
and it's happening.
It's
happening.
And to I think the key that from the Ford story and from your story, it was the belief that I could achieve the desire. Because the desire, if you don't believe that the desire is possible, all the desire in the world isn't going to help.
Thank you. There's the key. There's the key. Because that impossible and can't, impossible and cannot, are intertwined. I could have had the desire, and I've had that before, where I've had the desire to do something and stop myself because basically it's too much work. Do I really want
it? Too much work. Nobody
I got it through my head. Yeah,
100
years from now, 10 years from now, it might happen, but I'm not willing to put in that much work, maybe, so how really much do I desire it? And
the action.
Yes, and I'm going to go back to what John had said about designing success in your head. What does that look like? I've owned my business now well over 7 years, and there came the time when I had to shift from the running away from something to what am I going towards? Because I was far enough away from the pain and what caused me to be okay with stepping out on my own. I was far enough away that it wasn't real anymore. It wasn't the push, you know? It was like, well, you know, enough time has passed. Gee. So now what? Now where do I go? What do I do? And that, for me, was a shift in thinking that I had to start looking at what is it I really want out of myself, out of my business, out of, you know, what's the point? It has to go beyond transactional for me. And so that's, you know, I started moving towards that. And part of it was reading books like this, participating in discussions, being surrounded by people in similar industry, learning how people run their businesses, what their motivations are, and kind of absorbing some of that and taking in and mulling it about and aligning it. And I'm going to go back to what you guys were saying. No, it's going to go this way. What you guys were saying, which is that my belief is what is keeping me moving. And that changed. My beliefs changed. My beliefs about my abilities, about the offerings, about the customers I want to work with, you know, all that. And I'm going to go back to one last time to a statement I made earlier, which I firmly believe is that if you want to get heavy into self-improvement and personal development, start a business. Because I have been changing constantly. But it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I'm changing for the better. I am not the woman I was 8 years ago. And
they go hand in
almost
hand.
Not recognizable. Just ask my husband and those who know me. Almost not recognizable. So I just wanted to throw that out there for further discussion because we have another 5 or 6 minutes. You know, anybody want to jump on? And John, Sean, Edwin?
Yeah, I can. I basically, when you looked at that piece of the book that you're evaluating there with Henry Ford, he was a visionary. Mm-hmm. So you have to create a vision for your life. What is it that you're going to go after? When you moved away from that job, you moved away from that pain, then you got comfortable again. And now you're moving, you know, you got kind of into something drew you. So you went after your dream of like, oh, I want to own my own business. And then you got uncomfortable again. And that's where growth happens, is in that uncomfortable space. Get outside of that box of comfort zone. So here's a really great acronym that I teach. I'm an acronym guy. I think it's the military in me mostly. But I teach people.
Most likely.
Yeah. So when you look at vision, creating a vision for your life, being a visionary, it's dreams. So it's decide what you want, record it, in other words, write it down, expect it, put a timeline to it, act upon it, you know, put it, and I use a 3x5 card method. So it's the most powerful little piece of paper you can carry around. Put your incantation on here and read it 5 times a day. So I call it a 3x5x5 method. And then that's, you know, leads you towards your action, keeps you in constant action. And that's what Tony Robbins says, you know, any success in life comes from dynamic action. We have to take that action. So, and the next is
got to have your map.
Yeah, that's right. Map it out. And then you have to have your motivation. And then last is your strengths. Rely on your strengths. Don't focus on your weaknesses. So dreams, always go after your dreams. So when you want to be a visionary. So that's helped me a lot.
I can see why, because it's simplified and it's actionable. And it's something I can physically do. Because one thing I've noticed that as interesting as it is in my own head, and it is a great little world up there sometimes, I can get stuck there. So it's all the thinking and no doing, and that can get me into trouble. So I like that what you're talking about is all about taking it, and it's something simple enough to actually do. So therefore things get done. Good job.
Actionable steps.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And Charlene, one little thing for you, for example, I know I could tell, you know, from me speaking to you between yesterday and today, that one of your biggest things is the fear. And, you know, maybe one way that could help you get away, you know, move a little bit away from having the fear, it's one exercise that I did too when I went to a seminar, which is you put a rubber band around your wrist. So every time you have a negative thought, pull the rubber band as hard as you can.
Every man I know is in a physical pain. We have to talk about this. Oh,
not
please.
About physical pain. But listen,
think about, do you know how many men come up with that? It's the women that come up with the sit quietly and review. Write it down. Good.
No, because remember, if you don't, it's just like a kid. You know, when you tell a kid to do something, they don't listen to you. But when you spank them, they're going to stop doing it. So it'll be the same for you. Once you start seeing fear as a negative, as a painless thing, you're not going to think about it anymore, because you know every time you think about fear, you're going to feel
Right.
pain. So then you're going to stop thinking about it. Give it a try.
So Edwin, I'd like to clarify something here. I appreciate that your participation from yesterday and today, that you're participating and you're listening, and I appreciate that. I just want to remind you that what we've been reading to this point has been about fear. So a lot of what I'm sharing isn't really where I am right now. It has been the experience of getting to this point as related to what we're reading. Now, that's not to say I don't have the anxieties or the fears that hold me back. By all means, I still do, which is why I'm doing this morning mindset, is to involve other people into continuing to help me to keep moving forward and get past. So I just wanted to make note of that. Charlene isn't sitting in a bundle of fear. And that I appreciate everything that you've been putting out there. I love it. Love everything you've been sharing.
And that goes for everybody. You know, maybe I said it wrong, but that goes for everyone that has fear in their mind. You know, that's a little exercise that they could use, you know, that it has helped me personally and other people that I know a lot, you know, kind of deviate away from fear a little bit.
Fantastic. Thank you, Edwin. Yeah. Thank you.
Fear's false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, there's another acronym. I'm just going to leave it alone at the moment. I'm a lady.
Danger's real.
I'm a lady. It's being recorded, and there's a lot of mixed company, right?
Well, I actually ditched that old false evidence appearing real, and my new acronym for fear is face everything and rise.
That's a lot better than the one I had in my mind.
I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one as well. Thank you, Sean. So we have.
Well, I need to run because I need to do the morning routine with the wife. With my wife. She hates my wife, but it's like just routine to say that. But I got to get her coffee and get her ready so she can get started with her day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sean.
And I will see you guys tomorrow.
Yes, sir. See you in the morning. So I'm going to.
Sean, nice talking to you.
I'm going to wind this down now, verbally for the recording. So hang on just a second, Edwin. And I want to thank everybody for joining in the conversation and the discussion. I'm going to be stopping the recording now and hope you join me